College Football Enquirer with Ross Dellenger and Steven Godfrey. I am Andy Staples, and we have a lot to discuss from Saturday, but we will start where Ross used to live in Baton Rouge. Ross, you know the LSU program as well as anyone. You have been there when the fan base has decided they are done with a coach. They very much seemed done with Brian Kelly during that Texas A&M game last night.
Yes, they were done with Les Miles probably way before he was fired. You know, at that age, there's probably a little more patience in the world.
There was propriety then, Ross. Propriety.
Yes. In paying whatever it was, $12 to $15 million buyout was a bigger deal than it is now. So they were done with Les Miles and they were done with Ed Orgeron, and it does appear that they are done with Brian Kelly. It got about, just talking to people who were in the stadium, and you could see it and feel it on TV, but certainly people in the stadium look around, and the suites and club levels were completely pretty much empty in the fourth quarter, and nothing but Aggies fans yelling and screaming and doing the post-game chant and the hymn and all that stuff.
Whooping
was a pretty bitter feeling. And now it sort of just feels like kind of like when this happens. And we don't know the answer to that. Andy, we were talking off air, right? LSU doesn't have a president right now, university president, which causes a little bit of issues. It should, within the next couple of weeks, have a university president. But that will probably set the course for maybe the timeline on what happens. But it's a big buyout. I would say it's over $50 million. I think it's around 50, low to mid 50 millions.
53.8 if it happens on December 1st, and he has a duty to mitigate.
He does have a mitigation. Yeah, it's 90%. Yeah, of the remaining salary with mitigation. Which I think we had said it didn't have mitigation last time around.
Yeah, I was wrong on that.
But obviously Brian Kelly's 64, so you only mitigate if you're going to go get another job, and so I think LSU would be agreeing to pay a lot of money probably. So that's where we are. And now they got trips to Alabama coming. They have a bye week and then a trip to Alabama. And then they get Arkansas, a team that's given everybody trouble under Petrino, and then they finish the year at Oklahoma.
Nope. Oof. Just nope.
7-5, staring at 7-5.
Expert analysis. Nope.
Well, so here's how this game went, and it was a little bit of fool's gold for a minute, and I think that probably makes the LSU people even madder. Although I will say the LSU people, just like with Les Miles, we're ahead of the national audience on this. They were out on Brian Kelly pretty early. They were kind of out on Brian Kelly going into the season, and they were really out on him after the Ole Miss game. So this game, Texas A&M and LSU kind of go back and forth in the first half. Texas A&M makes some uncharacteristic mistakes. Marcel Reed throws a bad red zone interception that LSU then turns into points. There's another drive that LSU scores on toward the end after another interception where it was a tip ball. And so LSU is leading 18-14 at halftime. But if you watched Mike Elko's interview with Holly Rowe coming off the field, you were like, he doesn't sound like a guy who's worried about this. And there's a reason for that, because Texas A&M comes out in the second half and rips off 35 unanswered points. And then it was over. And then by the time it ended, by the time Garrett Nussmeier gets pulled out of the game for Michael Van Buren, the seats are empty. You've got the guy that says, Kelly must go, G-E-A-U-X. And he's standing in front of the Texas A&M fans singing the Aggie War Hymn.
I kind of want to tease up some other topics we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to use this game to do it.
Yes.
We just talked about a very large, maybe prohibitive in another life buyout for Louisiana State to change its head coach. We're talking about a head coach that was hired during the Saban era. Maybe, a lot of coaches were hired to replicate or answer Nick Saban, especially in the Southeastern Conference. Hugh Freeze at Auburn, Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Brian Kelly was as close to the sort of executive CEO statesman that LSU could pull to answer what Ed Orgeron lacked in terms of a sort of the finesse and the off field. And it was thought he would be this sort of complete program CEO. So Nick Saban is gone. The game has changed drastically and fundamentally in a handful of years, maybe more so than any other handful of years in the existence of the sport, not to be hyperbolic. And now you're left with someone that looks like he's trying to answer a question that's no longer being asked. And that's as nice as I can put it. When you compare him to his previous position, right? We talked a lot about those 6 jobs that flipped in the 21 cycle, right? And in the case of Notre Dame and LSU, even with losing the national championship last year, which is something that Brian Kelly was able to manage for Notre Dame, all joking aside, we have all lauded Notre Dame for becoming more talented and more physical and more aggressive in recruiting and development and basically producing NFL caliber bodies, if you will, than they ever did under Brian Kelly. So this idea that Notre Dame had been left behind was something that Marcus Freeman has essentially squashed in the short term. Now, last night, and why I think so many people are on everybody's phones right now this morning in Baton Rouge, you look across that sideline, go back to that prohibitive buyout. Texas A&M did what we thought was astronomically, if not stupid, then just sort of indulgent, right, at the time by firing Jimbo Fisher. And look at them now. This is maybe the most complete team in the SEC. Yeah.
Let me extend it because you're going in exactly the right direction. Texas A&M paid that buyout, and then when presented with the opportunity to take on another similar buyout, their board revolted. They were going to hire Mark Stoops to replace Jimbo Fisher. The board said, we're not guaranteeing Mark Stoops the same we were going to guarantee Jimbo Fisher. That's incredibly stupid. Who else you got? And who else you got was a former Texas A&M and Notre Dame defensive coordinator who was kicking ass at Duke, Mike Elko, who is that program CEO. He also happens to call the defense, but
yeah,
he is
really
that
good
program CEO that everybody was looking for.
The problem here is that while Mike Elko looks like the smartest decision Texas A&M has ever made in the modern era, full stop, Mike Elko had a wonderful relationship with a lot of the important people in College Station. Mike Elko did a lot of the off-field lifting in terms of sort of the political demand of being a head coach in the SEC. Mike Elko filled in a lot for Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher, shockingly cantankerous, and one of the negative side effects of giving Jimbo the guaranteed deal was it was like, hey man, can you go play in this golf tournament? Hey man, can you make an appearance? No, right? You gave him all the equity. What's funny is the byproduct of that was that people like Mike Elko stepped up in the interim, and he was really, really well. First off, he was known by important check writers in College Station, and 2, he was loved. Also, he was doing a really good job at Duke. The early conversations that I've had going back 3 weeks now with people around LSU and people in the agent coach world is that LSU can't just reach out and say, there's our Elko. That's my TV show. There's our Elko. That's a serious problem here this morning.
I got one, and I realize the job's not open. I'm just going to throw this name out here.
Okay.
Kelvin Shepard. Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, former LSU Tiger.
Right.
Started his coaching career as Ed Orgeron's director of player development.
Are you going to
NFL career? Are
you going to eat the 60 and bring him in on day one?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
No offense.
Lane Kiffin. But you could also, like if Florida can compete for Lane Kiffin, you can compete for Lane Kiffin as LSU.
Oh, definitely.
You can compete for anybody.
Competing in January.
Yeah.
This is where I wanted to go.
Which appears that he might be playing in January.
Yes.
Yeah, we can get to that in a second because we'll also get to that game in a second because I want to make sure that everybody's watching the games that they're coveting this guy for and some of the decision making in said football contests. But the way that
it's a vibe, Godfrey, it's a vibe.
Hey, it's a vibe.
Questionable calls.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
Yes.
The way it's a vibe. The way like a seizure's a vibe. And some of the decision making. The interesting thing is I was having conversations about John Summerall this week, unsurprisingly, and hey, what if Lane left for Gainesville? Well, wouldn't Ole Miss want to jump into the John Summerall sweepstakes and had a lot of sort of productive
100%.
conversations? Yeah, absolutely. Because John coached there, and so then you would be pitting Ole Miss against Auburn. What's funny is if you sort of go up a level, and I'm not trying to compare ranked programs, if Florida feels like they've got a puncher's chance, and they definitely do with Lane Kiffin, why not do the same thing if you're LSU? If that's what you want to do.
Right. And we don't know that. And again, they don't have a president. Brian Kelly's not fired yet.
The problem, Andy, is that the athletic director at Louisiana State University did not have the best relationship with Ed Orgeron, who he sort of, quickly and, kind of, in a sort of ugly and kind of palace intrigue type manner, ushered out the end of Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron and Lane Kiffin are pretty tight.
Oh, yeah. But I don't think Scott Woodward would make that hire.
Right.
Scott Woodward and Brian Kelly are inextricably linked. As Ross just filled us in on, they will have a new president. Athletic directors work for presidents. So I think there's a chance that this might be a combo platter if it goes that way.
I was at the Vanderbilt game a week ago and kind of lingered around the LSU locker room after media avails and watched Scott walk out of the visiting team locker room, waiting on the buses to get out of Nashville. And it was the actual picture of a 1,000-yard stare. There was a feeling that you can't overemphasize what you just said, Andy. It's been a long time since I've seen an athletic director. By the way, native son. This is his alma mater. This is the job he wanted to come back to after making really great hires at Washington, some tactical hires, you could say, at Texas A&M. Wanted to come back to LSU.
He made the Jimbo hire at Texas A&M. Let's not discount that.
He gave A&M sort of its current situation. So thanks, I guess, if you're an Aggie. I don't know. For him to come home with all of the native son equity in Baton Rouge and then really chain himself, both legs to the weight of one Brian Kelly. I don't know, to your point, if there's a world in which he's the athletic director and Brian Kelly's not the head coach, unless there's some unless Brian Kelly is going to leave immediately for the job at Penn State, which is that is a tongue
not going to happen.
Planted firmly in cheek joke.
And Scott Woodward can't say, but Kim Mulkey. That's not going to work.
No.
So,
he's had success. He also restarted the baseball program and took them back to national championship status, which is a big deal down there. I'm not saying he's a bad athletic director in the other sports. I'm saying he has made what will probably be a fatal error in the sport that matters most.
Well, he caused ultimately Texas A&M to have to spend all that money, because remember, Jimbo's extension that made the buyout so big was to keep Scott Woodward from taking him at LSU.
Right.
So he caused them to spend all that money. He's going to cause LSU to spend a ton of money. He has been the genesis of a lot of spending of other people's money. And I think that may be the undoing. But of course, that is the job of a college AD. Okay. Briefly, A&M, wagon, maybe the best team in the SEC.
I feel really good
like
about
a
that
playoff
pick.
team.
Yeah.
Yep. Feeling like a playoff team.
Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, is about to start getting a cup of coffee for a lot of head coaching openings. This is a well constructed staff. This is a roster that, man, y'all, every time they win a big game this season, I keep thinking about like how fast they were able to go in and fit this roster to be effective almost immediately. Like, where was the ramp up?
I remember sitting in Destin and in that room where they bring all the coaches in to talk during spring meetings. And I remember sitting there listening to Elko, and he goes, "We're better at every position group than we were last season." And I was like, okay, filing that away mentally, because that sounds a little odd, because I don't know that any SEC coach is going to say that. He's not wrong. He was right.
No, yeah, they made a bad LSU offensive line look its worst to the season.
Yeah. I thought Garrett Nussmeier was going to die at some point.
Yeah. I mean, the way their front played was incredibly phenomenal. And I know that LSU's offensive line has struggled all year, and it's sort of one of the sore spots of the team right now, but they just blew it open on the front. And then, as you guys mentioned, like, they went to the portal to sort of place here and there, fill some holes here and there, including like Mario Craver from Mississippi State, who's just been sort of electric. And obviously, return the punt, right?
Yep.
And then you look at Marcel and having like they showed clips of him during the game of basketball playing as a point guard, and golly, it's so crazy to compare those clips of him on the court to then on the field and how he sort of scrambles around, and it's like the same sort of person. He does like the same moves and things like that. And yeah, he looked incredibly well. Not to turn it back to LSU, but like the biggest surprise for LSU is that their defense has kept them to like in every game.
They're really
year,
good,
and
yeah.
that's what just got destroyed in the third quarter.
I think schematically, this defense struggles against quarterbacks like Marcel Reed.
Yeah, that moves.
And
yeah.
We saw it last year too, when the defense didn't have as good of a roster, but when Marcel Reed came into that game last year, that was the end of LSU for last year. So
it was the QB run from last week with Pavia too. Mobile quarterbacks have not particularly done well against them. And I asked this question going into Vandy and now A&M because they're very, very similar teams in a lot of ways in terms of what they want to do schematically. There is a real creativity to what they do, dialing up blitzes and applying pressures, but it opens massive gaps. I've asked this, and I asked like the scheme Twitter people, like, you know, I think to some degree with Reed and definitely Pavia against that defense, it was almost like they were designing pass plays to just pull receivers and defenders out of the way so their guys could run. And then statistically, when you look at the sheets at the end of the game, it just feels like it was the plan all along. By the way, all this uncertainty and parity in the SEC, you have really good lines and you can run the ball with multiple players. Like if you have, 1, 2, 3 backs or you have a mobile quarterback, it's a pretty easy way to win games. We're seeing a through line now,
which historically has been the best way to win games.
By the way, nothing I said other than maybe mobile quarterback is that different than 30 years ago. Like, hey, all the big uglies are probably still your secret to success.
Stop the run, right? Stop the run the ball, and now have a
Speaking of mobile quarterback who keeps plays alive, dances around, makes things happen. Let's talk Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss Rebels who went to Norman. And I think punched their ticket to the college football playoff. Obviously, they are not in yet, but they have 4 games left. They can lose one of them. Those games are against South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State. All but Mississippi State are at home. It certainly feels like they are in, barring an absolute catastrophe.
I think that catastrophe is so easy to write, and that's why I've shied away from talking about ticket punching. Here's how. It's very simple. We think the Washington State game for Ole Miss was that game this year where they basically farted, but this time they survived with a win. Last year it was against Mark Stoops at 11 a.m. against Kentucky. They have a South Carolina team next week who's not bad by any measure. Ole Miss has shown
pushed Alabama to the brink.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss has shown to be the anathema of the Nick Saban even temper, right? So when they come off big wins, they lose games. Last year they beat Georgia. They lost to Florida, okay? They were coming off wins last year. They lose to Kentucky. This is kind of what they do. So after South Carolina, I would be willing to say that they can, quote unquote, here's my phrase, guys, spin the loss in the Egg Bowl. Because I would also say if they lose to South Carolina and they have to win in Starkville against that Mississippi State team, this could be a legendary Egg Bowl, which is a rivalry game, as we can attest. That is, its signature is uncertainty.
Yeah,
Ross, I'm sorry, but your
state has been so close.
Your alma mater is allergic to winning, Ross.
Oh my gosh! And that was my I got a feeling. I'm sitting back in the fourth quarter, tipped 11 minutes left in the game, and they're up by 17, which means my I got a feeling's up by 24 points, and I think I pushed or whatever. I think it was 7. So wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, they seem allergic to winning SEC games. It's remarkable how late in the games that with the mistakes that they have made. But anyway, that will be an incredible Egg Bowl, Godfrey. And think about this: not only on that's a Friday game, but also on Saturday game that weekend, you could have, and we've talked about this, another do or die rivalry game for playoff when Michigan host Ohio State as well. So you could have a couple of those 9-2 programs, right, that need to beat their rival to get in to go to the playoff.
I've been asking folks in my home state not to jump around too much. Can you ever remember an old fashioned hate game with this many stakes? And it's really hard. I want to go back for a second because this guy is, basically the crown jewel of this coaching search.
Lane Kiffin. Yes.
Want to take you back to the Ole Miss's 34-yard line. It's 4th and 1. It's the end of the third quarter.
It's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a vibe, boys. We got
not only that
11
one,
players
how
on the
about
field.
putting in the quarterback?
7 of them are quarterbacks on the field. None of them are actually lined up to receive the snap. No one knows what the hell is going on. You are on your 34-yard line against Oklahoma's defense.
Let's not forget putting Austin Simmons in on
putting
second.
Austin Simmons on the goal line. Yeah,
on
that's
second
what I
and
was
goal.
Say. Yeah,
Guys,
cold.
Yeah.
And they had a receiver wide open that Trinidad Chambliss would have hit because he's not cold.
Yes. And you saw Lane on the sideline go, stupid. I think he said, stupid me. He said, stupid me.
The other thing is I would attribute 14 of the 26 points off the top of my head that Oklahoma scored yesterday. This should have been a blowout, but there are two.
Yeah, Ole Miss is 2 or 3 touchdowns better. Yeah.
Yes, this was two ridiculously bad defensive plays for Ole Miss where they were essentially coverage busts, where Oklahoma just scored easy. One was a catch and go, and I think one was a broken run fit. But this is it's a roller coaster you really enjoy riding. Okay, just watching them. If you can be objective and watch Ole Miss and not care as a fan one way or the other, it's a really fun roller coaster. It has a terrible safety rating. Okay, you may be left hanging upside down, clinging for your life, which is why everyone's like, punch their ticket. I'm like, this program could lose next week to South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, Godfrey, your point. Yeah, the lapses in defense against Lenore Sellers in South Carolina. I mean, you could see this game being close. And let us not forget, the Ole Miss of the last few weeks, where we saw for 3 quarters of dominance at Georgia, pretty much dominated the whole game against Oklahoma. There was that Ole Miss that barely beat Arkansas in a really tight game. Was a very competitive game with Kentucky as well earlier this season, and of course the Washington State's game. So we can write in the Rebels now, but look, there's plenty of.
I think the more intriguing of the remaining 4 games is Florida, which would like to hire Ole Miss's coach away and has a talented enough roster to beat anybody in the SEC, but we have no idea what they're going to look like under the interim coach.
I haven't mentioned the Florida team I haven't even mentioned the Florida team that knocked them out of the playoff last year. That game's an option, I guess, for whatever that's worth. The raucous home environment.
Playing to potentially knock them out of the playoff and maybe hire the coach. How about that?
Right, or do you lay down? Is this a let them score situation where you're like, don't tackle them, let them score? Does Florida be like,
there was one of those called 70. The Florida flop against Miami years and years ago. I don't think they'll ever do that again.
Okay. So no, I don't think any ticket is punched, save for I would really like, they're on a bye next week, but A&M going into Missouri, if they win that game, which I feel pretty confident the way they look right now, they could again spin the loss, and no one wants to lose against their rival. But at that point, I feel like A&M and then maybe Alabama are probably the closest things we've got to a lock for a playoff bid in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah. And Alabama.
Yeah.
Same old.
I just think Alabama needs to play playoff teams every week. If Alabama plays playoff teams every week, they're fine.
It seems to be the case.
When you got to play a team that's going to go 6-6, you're in deep trouble. So
do you think that there's just weird fits in terms of because Alabama struggled against South Carolina last year, and that we don't know how representative that was. Is it just that we're just seeing certain weird matchups that do that? Because that's the only explanation I have. Because Alabama, Andy said coming out of Georgia, hey, that's the game you win. And then how do you acquit yourself in the stretch of ranked teams? They won those games. And then this is where they kind of sort of laid the egg.
I just think what Nick Saban used to do, where they felt the same way about a game against a 3-4 team as against a 7-0 team, is really hard to do, and most coaches can't do it.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that. And I think that's going to define the next decade of the SEC, because the increase of parity, as you're saying, and then also just the fact that it's hard to keep 19-year-olds even keeled.
Yeah. All right. One more playoff team, and this team never had to sweat, but Indiana's just freaking awesome.
Machine. They
annihilated you. UCLA had been very plucky, had won 3 in a row. They annihilated UCLA. 56-6.
If we don't start talking about Mendoza like we are, Diego and Ty Simpson and all the other Heisman sort of candidates, I mean, we should start. We should start now. Another 3 touchdown performance. He didn't light it up, but they didn't really need to, right? Defensively. Yeah. I mean, this Indiana team is better than last year's team just defensively. I mean, just look at what they've done on defense. It's phenomenal. They had the pick 6 by, was it Aiden?
Aiden Fisher.
the linebacker.
Yeah.
One of the JMU guys that he brought over. Yeah, it's been impressive. And again, we've talked about it, but you look at the rest of their schedule, and
it's so bad,
guys. I mean, they should coast right into a matchup against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, which will be fun.
By the way, jumping ahead a little bit, there's been this whole thing about the death of conference championship games as like in terms of a value. If Indiana is in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis, that place is going to rock. It's going to be awesome.
Man.
Oh yeah. And
Won't
I just
be very
want to
many
see
empty seats. Yeah.
I just want to see Indiana play Ohio State. Period. I don't care where they play, how they play. I just want to see that game.
Oh man, that's going to be like 13-10.
Yeah,
Very well
probably.
could.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, when we come back, let's head away from the playoff discussion. Although one team I want to talk about is theoretically still alive for the playoff, mathematically still alive for the playoff. Let's talk about some very odd rumors and then a very odd game when we come back in Stark Vegas. We'll be right back. We're back at the College Football Enquirer, and a game that held a lot of the country's attention because it was just so odd. It was Ross's I've Got a Feeling game. His alma mater, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, take a pretty commanding lead, a 38-21 lead against Texas into the fourth quarter. But that's not where the interesting part begins with this game. The interesting part begins before the game kicked off on Saturday morning when we're all sitting there watching the pregame shows, and we see a tweet from Diana Rossini of The Athletic. She's an NFL reporter that says Steve Sarkisian has made it known that he'd be interested in NFL jobs. Now, this is a believable thing. Steve Sarkisian was once the Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator, but it is coming from from the NFL side. We've sort of seen this before, but it didn't necessarily come from someone who usually leaks things that come from Steve Sarkisian's agency, which is what made it odd. And then everybody has an opinion on it.
Yeah. Including CAA, his agency.
Yeah, which never happens.
Is odd.
Very unusual.
That was a first.
CAA.
Ross, have you ever seen that?
But yeah, I was about to say I have not. I don't remember that ever happening. Because usually they want that stuff to fester.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And this is
good for their client.
I was trying to explain this to fans on social media yesterday because they're like, "Oh, I don't believe you." Of course they leaked it, and then they put the statement out. I'm like, no. They always leak stuff, and they never put out statements refuting the leaks because the leaks are usually good for business.
Right.
You do one or the other. If you're putting the leak out, then you let it flourish. You don't immediately stamp it out. That would solve that would create nothing. This was I've never seen one come from CAA Sports. Certainly, I've never seen it was maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. It was quick. It was emphatic. This without passing judgment on someone else in the media, like this feels like maybe the information was more speculative or came from more of the league side or whatever. But what I would glean from this is that Sarkisian and his representative said, no, tamp that out immediately.
Well, I think Sarkisian kind of acknowledged that, sort of confirming it after the game. Yeah, he's basically like, I had to do that for my team, to protect my team in the program. And so clearly he made a phone call probably to the agency of what the hell is this? Please squash it as quickly as possible. And I think for the first time ever, we saw a statement from Jimmy Sexton and Ed, Marinowitz, the other agent for Steve Sarkisian. The question is, I think Dan Wolken wrote this in his misery index, is like there are three options here that could have happened, right? First option is Diana Rossini's wrong, which is probably of the three, perhaps the most unlikely because of sort of her
she has good
coverage of the NFL. Sort of her pass to the NFL. Option two is that the agents, there was a sort of intentional, hey, let's get this going, get this out there. And then and then option three is they were back channels to NFL teams of his interest, but they didn't really want it out there.
This is the one that seems.
Yes. The option three seems like maybe it was what we're looking at.
I'll take everybody back to the 2021 going into 22 offseason when Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly both moved, and talking to people on both sides of those deals, the condition was in both cases, if it gets out even as a message board whisper, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no deal. And so that's one of those things that if that happened, this was supposed to be quiet, and some team was like, hey, guess what we heard?
Yeah. And it makes a lot. Look, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he spent several years in the NFL. I think a lot of NFL teams think highly of Sarkisian and his offensive sort of acumen. And in another part, I think, of this is that maybe he sees, he's done what he was brought Texas to do, and that's lead them sort of back, quote unquote, as back-to-back playoff or semifinal runs, and perhaps it's time to do something else. I don't know.
It is going to be very interesting the rest of the way because of what happened on the field. Also, Texas taken to overtime for the second consecutive game. Texas should have lost. We talked about how Mississippi State's allergic to winning, but Texas comes back, showed a lot of fight, Texas fight, as it were. Arch Manning is injured at the end of the game. It sounds like he's got a concussion. We don't know if he's going to play in the Vandy game next week. So Matt Caldwell comes in, throws the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Guys, we haven't seen the lines for this week yet as we record this on Sunday morning.
Right.
Vandy should be favored in this game. Like, I don't have any confidence in Texas to win out.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the rushing totals in this game? Like,
it was not pretty. It's like 41 for Trey Wisner, and he was the leading rusher for Texas.
So both teams managed. So we had bad at math. I got kicked out of college. It was like 80 odd points, right? Okay.
Yep.
Both teams are sub 100 rushing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Big 12 we thought we were getting. I mean, this is to go into a Vanderbilt game like this is. I think Vanderbilt might be like more than a touchdown favorite.
I don't think they will be, because I don't think like the line makers will feel like they'll shot collar on them if they try that, even though they probably want to do that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it's Vandy by 2.5.
Texas ran for 72 yards. Everything was through.
We're talking about the line for this week's Vandy Texas game at Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys know what that Vegas is going to do there. There's no way they're going to favor Vanderbilt, right? I mean, they probably should, but there's no way they will.
They'll favor Vanderbilt to get all that public money on Texas.
To get the money, maybe?
Yeah. This line will move throughout the week for sure.
Because they want to sucker people into betting on Texas.
For sure. Yeah. Quarterback controversy? No, just kidding. Matthew Caldwell came in, has a perfect passer rating. Just throwing that out there, weren't you?
It's true. It's true.
I think it was reported too.
That's right.
I think it was reported by like a local. I can't remember the local site there in Texas that Arch was. I guess it was a concussion. So the thought is that it's no like soft tissue issue or something. So I'm guessing he would be back in short order.
The quickest you can come back is 7 days. So that would be if there are any lingering effects of the concussion, he's out another week. So that's the thing you've got to watch. And it'll be one of those Wednesday night situations where we're watching the availability reports.
Just going against. So just one more time. 72 rushing yards. He was sacked 5 times. Like this is shaping up to be really, really one-sided, which is incredible to say. Yeah.
And meanwhile, Vandy beats Missouri in a rock fight.
Yeah.
Vandy can beat you in a bunch of different ways, which I think that's important. I think that matters when you're trying to do something you hadn't done before.
Little Bird told me that that was the Vandy Missouri matchup was way more difficult for Vandy because they felt like it was a much more even matchup and provided them more difficulty than LSU did the previous week. And it turned out to be true.
Drink to LSU rumors engaged.
Let's go.
Sorry, had to.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Spur.
But yeah, we were through. we're through the looking glass, because whether Vegas favors Vandy or not, we're all sitting here saying it. I think everybody who's watched games all season would pick Vandy to be favored in the game. We are absolutely through the looking glass in college football when Vanderbilt is the team going to Texas, and we think Vanderbilt is the one that's going to win the game.
I mean,
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. The position that everything is in. I mean, think about, to widen the lens, and we talked a little bit about this last week, I think, but Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, Indiana, even Ole Miss, right? We're talking about top
Cincinnati.
7, 8 teams. And
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's on a 7-game winning streak, 7-1, as well. BYU is undefeated. It's, I don't know that we've ever seen a top 10, top 15 quite like we're seeing right now. And it goes back to what we talked about at length last week. I think, it's the portal and what it's done to college football.
It's not 2007 because the circumstances around 2007 were very different. But it's kind of like a remix. It's like a cover of that song. And in case you think that this is dooming college football, 2007 ended with 2 helmets playing each other in the national title, LSU and Ohio State. So, and again, as we sit here and talk about this, all due respect to Indiana, the 2 best teams in college football are probably Ohio State and either Alabama, A&M, and then Indiana's right there. So it's not that strange at the top, but it's just like when you step out of like maybe number 4 to number 20, it doesn't look like anything that we're used to or that we were able to predict. By the way, Vanderbilt beats Texas. The preseason 1 versus 2 will be completely flushed out of the top 25, let alone the playoff projection.
Yeah. So let's travel west on I-40 for about 3 hours from Nashville to Memphis, where another game with major playoff implications was happening. USF takes a big lead, is commanding the game through 3 quarters, and then Memphis dominates the 4th quarter to beat USF, take control in the American race. Doesn't mean they're going to win it because they still have to play Tulane and Navy, but huge win for the Tigers and Ryan Silverfield.
This was pretty brutal for South Florida because it's the 2nd loss. I'm not saying that they couldn't. It's just that now I'm looking, I don't know if we want to get off Memphis immediately, but like in terms of the picture now, we have to start talking about schools like JMU. There's not a total certainty now with the way that the American could shake out that they would automatically,
right? Because USF still has a chance to win it. Yeah,
right. USF would have a chance to win it. They would be holding 2 losses. There is a potential for an outside school right now. However, I still think that the top of that league feels like the likeliest, or at least the most talented. Now, I'm not trying to give JMU bullets forward.
Overcome a 2-loss USF? Boise State.
Yes,
that's right.
If Boise State wins the Mountain West, USF
they got whipped.
is ahead.
Schedule the games, people.
Right.
This is what we love.
Yeah.
Schedule G5s, schedule each other out of conference, make those big games. This is great. I think that's good for the sport. It's definitive. I know it gets rid of one argument, but it's also it creates an emphatic referendum.
How about Godfrey, one of your teams you've talked about? You've talked about a few times. How about San Diego State too?
Yeah.
I mean, they're still right there. They're now 6-1, and I think their defense has been like one of the best in the country. I think they're like shutting out people. It seems like on a weekly basis.
Fresno State.
Ross, we all knew that they would rise from the ashes of a 6-3 win in Northern Illinois in September.
They had 3 shutouts this year
to dominate.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, their only losses to
that?
Washington State in week 2.
Yeah.
I would be curious if a 1-loss team from the Mountain West would have a shot at all based off of the better scheduling and just the better play and more. And there's an opportunity for better resumes overall from 3 or maybe even 4 American schools.
Yeah, they need a lot. And then JMU too, as you mentioned.
And
unless Navy can beat Notre Dame, there's not going to be, like, the American champ's going to have a win against at least one power conference school. Memphis beat Arkansas, USF beat Florida, and Tulane beat Northwestern and Duke. So that's why the American is getting the benefit of the doubt here. And again, schedule the games.
Yeah.
To Godfrey's point,
for a 2nd year in a row, there's going to be a lot of eyes in the sort of the G5 race on Navy in Notre Dame in a couple of weeks. But first, Navy's got to go, I think, to North Texas, who they've been playing pretty damn good too. Their quarterback just put up a historic 600 plus passing yard day on Friday night, which is pretty wild.
James Madison, our friends in Harrisburg,
lost to Louisville.
Okay, I was about to say their loss to Louisville, which is only by 2 scores, looked a little bit better.
Really good.
Louisville beats Miami. Okay.
Yeah.
They have a completely manageable schedule from here on out. It's basically the back end of conference play. They still have Washington State. Weirdly, Washington State just keeps figuring in because they had to create a really weird schedule this year.
Somebody. Yeah.
I don't. They are a step above everyone in their conference. So I feel like if any team here, I could kind of pencil in for running a table in conference play, it would be JMU. By the way, quick shout out Southern Miss, Charles Huff. Keep an eye on that.
Yeah, 5-2
almost
or
Ross.
6-2.
Ross. We both covered that program.
Crazy.
So they're 6-2. They're 4-0 in Sun Belt play. It's as close to an instant flip at a woebegone derelict.
It's almost as if he brought a quarter
like
of the Sun Belt champion roster. To the last place team, which is what he did.
It's working for Hoosier. Can the Hoosier plan work for you? I mean, we're starting to see this work across college football. This is yet another one.
Penn State just called Bob Chesney.
Yeah,
they should.
They've got an off week, and then they go to Arkansas State. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of calls. I have a feeling to Bob Chesney. There might be a lot of calls to Bob Chesney, especially if they run the table, because he's won. He's kind of got a little like Willie Fritz to him. By the way, Willie Fritz is 7-1 at Houston in his second year and just whipped Arizona State. I think afterward, Kenny Dillingham said, "You guys whipped our ass" or something like that. But he's got a little Willie Fritz where he has been at the low levels and he's won everywhere. He has.
That's also Kurt Signetti. It's the same path. Willie Fritz, Kurt Signetti, Bob Chesney. Yep.
Willie Fritz has just never enjoyed that 1 year, like last year that Sig had, that one spotlight year. But I tell you what, if I was Nebraska and I had to hire a coach for reasons, just some at Penn State, it'd be hard to find someone better than the Midwest native himself. He's from that part of the country.
If only Nebraska's AD Troy Dannon had ever hired Willie Fritz for another job.
That's so weird. Oh wait, that's never happened.
It's true. Yeah.
Oh wait, he did at Tulane. Okay,
this thing weighs down Willie and which is so weird. Is like, he's older and he comes across as just
he's your dad.
Older, right? But
even older than my dad.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. He comes across as just right. Yeah. But he doesn't coach that way. He doesn't recruit that way. He doesn't operate his program that way. He doesn't operate his program as old school. We talk a lot about like older coaches who sort of stuck in their ways, especially on the portal and NIL. And Willie is not like that.
That's because he got stuck in a lot of CS gigs. And sorry, go ahead.
I'm so glad we brought up Willie Fritz, because I want to get into the Big 12 race, which is going to be bananas in the last month of the season. So when we come back, we'll talk a little more Willie Fritz and Houston, but we'll also talk Brendan Sorsby in Cincinnati, undefeated BYU, Texas Tech with the injured starting quarterback getting dressed at halftime, just in case. We'll be right back. Talk Big 12. We are back with the College Football Enquirer, and just a reminder, if you'd like to see us in living color, Godfrey's got the unmade bed behind him this particular Sunday. It's always one of us is in a hotel room with the unmade bed. It's Godfrey's turn this Sunday. But if you want to see us, click on the Yahoo Sports Network on your smart TV. You turn on the TV, you've got that row of icons on your home screen. Click on the Yahoo Sports Network. You can find us there. Also, anytime, day or night, 365, 24/7 on a tablet, on a phone, on any device. Go to yahoosports.tv and you can watch the College Football Enquirer. Guys, we were talking Willie Fritz in Houston, what he's done. And it's pretty amazing given where that program was when he took it over last year. But we also had buried Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati now currently undefeated in Big 12 play. Their 1 losses to Nebraska. BYU's undefeated. Texas Tech has the 1 loss to Arizona State, but looks like it has the best roster. This Big 12 race is going to be awesome.
Yeah. And we knew it, right? We knew it probably was going to be pretty exciting. Although early in the year, I think a lot of us thought, Texas Tech is just going to, right? And I thought that too.
I did too.
The better roster. They're playing the best. they're going to coast to this thing. But the Big 12 chaos reigns. Brett Yormark was on, did like a mid-game interview in the Kansas State game, and said that the Big 12, and I thought this was an interesting stat, led all conferences in league games with fourth quarter lead changes. So led all conference games and with the most fourth quarter lead changes. So conference of chaos. So yeah, it's like you got Cincinnati, TCU, BYU, Texas Tech, obviously, and Houston. And Utah's playing really good. They just beat Colorado 53-7 late last night. Like, you got all these teams sort of bunched up together, and it's going to be like last year where you had 4 teams tied for the lead, and you have to pick a championship game participants based on tiebreakers.
This is great. This is good for football, all that stuff. I just want to go back for a second. Could you imagine any of the other conference commissioners, like Carnival Barker style, getting on television and being like, hey, something's going to blow up behind me. I don't know what. You don't know either. Come on in the tent and find out.
Yes.
Listen here, Mike Elko Jr. It is going to be wild
on
the fourth quarter.
Yes. He also said that Big 12 basketball was the best division in basketball in the world outside of the NBA.
Let's go. Dude, this guy's Paul Heyman. I love it so much. The other thing I love is this. We set the table with Texas Tech.
Mark, Godfrey?
That's your mark. You're Paul Heyman. We set the table with Texas Tech in the preseason, as we should, obviously. But the teams I thought would compete with Texas Tech were Arizona State, K-State, Utah, or Iowa State. They have a combined, I think, like 11 or 12 losses now. They're basically the middle of the pack of this league. BYU, undefeated, obviously. Cincinnati and Houston. Wow. Like, Houston was not a great roster. It was very incomplete. And talking to people in the spring, it felt like we're a year off. We still have some work to do. One of the things that Fritz is really good at is rehabilitating rosters. And he's done it here in a shorter order than I can remember. And he took over for a transition Georgia Southern team when they went up to FBS after Jeff Monken and those guys upset Florida. And there was a lot of work that had to be done to go to the FBS level. He did that incredibly well. Almost beat Georgia. You guys remember that? He almost beat Georgia.
I remember.
This job.
That was yet another nail in Mark Richt's coffin at UGA.
It was, yeah. This job, I think, might be the best of all, because now they are competing with, and I think after last night and the way that they beat up on Arizona State, this is a complete football team that is going to get another shot at Texas Tech potentially. Although, Cincinnati, BYU, I have something to say about that.
Yeah, I think he said, I don't remember if it was last night or it's just maybe in the past, I was reading Willie Fritz's comments about rebuilding this team. And we just talked about how he sort of gets that narrative of he's just older and old school. But I think his rebuilding of rosters, he's proven he can do it in the previous era, the non-portal era. And now he's like doing it in the portal era. And he mentioned, I think it was last night, like how quickly he could turn the roster and flip the roster than he could in the past because of the portal. Yeah. And he's like taken advantage and done it and put the right pieces in place. And they play, as all of his teams, they play like sound, mistake-free, mostly football.
Great case of knowing what you're looking for.
I'll be emphatic here. I embedded with Willie Fritz for a week and a half, a long time ago. I know how old he is, and I understand how he comes across. I never got that. I've embedded with a lot of coaching staffs, and I've seen younger coaches that are filled with doubt actually lean into some kind of old coach tropes. Willie Fritz knows who he is, and I think that actually makes him younger and more progressive in sort of the way he runs a program. I mean, This is just a case of don't judge the book by its cover.
And he's always looking the advantage, right? Like, I mean, I spent a lot of time with him at Tulane, kind of a similar thing, Godfrey, and like he was talking about, all he wanted to talk to me about when I was like around him was how can we sort of push the envelope of the new evolution of college football, whether it's transfer, NIL, or changing at the time, changing like Tulane or tweaking, adjusting Tulane's like, not enrollment. What am I thinking of?
Admissions,
like admission stuff and all that. I mean, he was always thinking, his brain was always working sort of that way.
You know who else knows who he is in this league is Kalani Sitake. Think about this. They had to, because they were going to have to suspend him because of a rule that only they have in college football. They lost their starting quarterback in the summer. They started a true freshman. They're still undefeated. Bear Bachmeier was fantastic against Iowa State on Saturday. They're doing this in a season where if you just said in July when it was clear that Jake Retzlaff wasn't coming back, you said, okay, BYU is going to be 8-0 in late October. You'd have been like, no way, this is not possible.
Mm-hmm. Especially down, I think they were down 14 in the second quarter, maybe late in the second quarter.
In this
they were
game,
down 24-10 in this game. And then, they got a pick six, I think, defensively. But Bear Bachmeier, I mean, every time you look up, he's making an incredible pass to Parker Kingston or who's the other receiver who had Chase Roberts. I mean, they both had over 100 yards. So it's phenomenal what Kalani has done. You remember that season? I think it was their first season in the Big 12, right? They were like 4-8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thought, they're going to be one of those teams that move conferences. It was struggle. He's going to get fired next year, and boom, pow.
Really interesting schedule coming up because Houston and Cincinnati don't. They got to earn it. Houston and Cincinnati don't see each other. Texas Tech hosts BYU in 2 weeks. I think they're going in. Mm-hmm. BYU's going into a bye.
BYU's got at Texas Tech and at Cincinnati coming up.
Yeah. Well, so here's what's interesting. So at Texas Tech
and TCU,
the BYU and Cincinnati could play each other, and it might not matter if I'm reading this right. It could actually still set up the Big 12 championship because Cincinnati's loss is to Nebraska in week 1. Now, granted, there's a lot of stuff left. Cincinnati has to go to Utah. Okay, Cincinnati closes the year against a really good TCU team. I don't want to make it just this simple, but the November 22nd BYU Cincinnati game, as we all predicted, will basically determine at least one of the teams in the Big 12 championship. And these are all playoff games in my mind. This is why the system's so beautiful, you idiots. Not you guys, just the world, just people trying to mess with the system. We are creating must-watch television in the Big 12 at least 2 or 3 games a week down the stretch. This is how it's supposed to work.
And Cincinnati, I want to point out, has the best player in the conference in Brendan Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby is a machine. I don't know if you guys saw him break the dude's ankles in the Baylor game yesterday, but he did. He broke somebody's ankles, scored a touchdown, 11 carries for 85 yards. And oh, by the way, he actually didn't throw for that many. This was not one of his better passing games, but he has had those games. Like against Kansas, he threw for 388 yards, and against Oklahoma State, 284. But Sorsby is the X factor for Cincinnati, and he's the one that makes him go. We'll see, can they keep this up? Because
this is the best Scott Satterfield's ever looked at this level. This is like kind of unexplainable, as good as they are. Because
he was Louisville teams.
He was 25-24 at Louisville overall. Yeah. I mean, his best season, they won 8 games. It was his debut, and he's on track to win the conference. And also, this was a hey, watch the hot seat. This was the first. Yeah, this was the first school when I was doing hot seat in August, where agents were prepping clients for the job and shortlisting the job, and now they're 7-1. Yeah. So this is the best he's ever looked at P5 level. This was a guy who for a while was getting looks by the SEC early on in his time in Louisville. And so it's just amazing.
Yeah, I remember he got out of Louisville. Everybody sort of thought before the Axe.
He reset the clock. Game. He reset the clock specifically for an opportunity like this. Yeah.
Yep. The 3 wins first season at Cincinnati, 5 wins last year, and you thought that if he went 5 or worse this year, that job would open, and here they are at 7-1.
Meanwhile, your team that we consider to be the favorite for much of this season, Texas Tech, had a weird game against Oklahoma State. Of course, they won. We knew that was going to happen. But so the Will Hammond, the backup quarterback to Baron Morton, starts the game, goes out with a knee injury in the first half. Baron Morton is in street clothes on the sideline. Mitch Griffiths, the Wake Forest transfer, comes in. Baron Morton gets dressed for the second half. He's basically the emergency quarter. Like in the NFL, they have the emergency guy. That was Baron Morton yesterday. Now, it looks like Baron Morton is going to be able to come back and start down the stretch, but it is a concern, especially if Will Hammond's injury is a long-term one. I think that Joey McGuire said he needed to get an MRI today. So we'll find out where they're at. But that was a weird situation, and maybe the best roster in the league, but hanging by a string depending on quarterback health.
Yeah, we all know how important quarterback is. Although in this game against Oklahoma State, at least, they didn't need to do much. 182 yards for the Cowboys. That is the thing that Texas Tech, you'd think, will be able to lean on a little bit, is their defense, especially that defensive front. They seem to create a lot of havoc, sacks, interceptions, all that fun, lost fumbles, things like that. They do a good job. I think Oklahoma State was 5 of 19 on third or fourth down yesterday. So, but quarterback, yes, important. Be curious of what happens there. What's their schedule like?
So they have BYU in 2 weeks.
They have to play BYU in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's
the crucial game there for them. They're at K-State next week, which is not nothing.
Playing better. Yeah, K-State's playing better. Won a 17th straight in the Sunflower Showdown. Of all the times for Kansas to finally win one, this felt like the time.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, Kansas State went there.
That rivalry always reminds me
in the
of
brand new
Virginia,
stadium and all
Tech.
that one.
Yeah, where it's just totally one-sided against a basketball school.
So let's talk next week a little bit, because it's going to be the beginning of true elimination games. We have a couple that are pure playoff elimination games. One in Knoxville, Oklahoma going to Tennessee. One in Lincoln, USC going to Nebraska, which is going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, every game Michigan plays from here on out is one of those. And if you want to see that amazing clash, Michigan, Ohio State, with Michigan having a playoff berth on the line, they still have to keep winning. But they're playing Purdue next week, so we obviously feel pretty good about that. That USC Nebraska game is utterly fascinating, because the losing team's fan base is going off the cliff there, even though they're probably fairly evenly matched.
Cincinnati, Utah.
And
Go ahead, Ross.
No, I was just going to say, we mentioned it already, but Vandy at Texas.
Vandy has one to spend, though, so it's not as bad, but they can knock Texas out.
In Miami at SMU too.
I was going to
go race. That's a big one in the.
How much do we trust Miami?
Race. So is Virginia at Cal.
Yeah. Virginia yesterday, 3-0 in overtime. 3-0 in overtime. Your cardiac who?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I feel like that has to regress to the mean at some point. But Bill Belichick, went for 2, and then because he wants to shorten the game, he feels like he has the worst roster. It makes sense.
Yeah,
they didn't get it.
Dan Casey, our friend on social media, he pointed out yesterday that one of Alabama's touchdowns and this 2-point conversion were the exact same play. It's just that Virginia played zone and Alabama scored because South Carolina was man, and it was that simple. Yep. And they just had it. They just had the numbers for it. And also, if he extends a bit, he's breaking the plane before he falls. It was.
I know. I was waiting for him to do the Superman.
And somebody said,
Belichick's
thing Belichick's thing is never extend over the goal line. As a football person actually told me this past week, reminded me, the rule is never extend over the goal line, because you can have the ball knocked out and it becomes a touchback. Right. Unless it's the last play of the game.
The last play, a third down, fourth down, or overtime,
or you can just,
2-point conversion.
I feel like the exception there is touching the pylon too. Just nudge the pylon.
Just aim for the pylon.
But I think that maybe the training took over, and it was not, and didn't fire mentally that it's the last play of the game.
Everything we just talked about in the Big 12. Shout out to Cincinnati and Utah, because all the hype we just gave Cincinnati, your reward is that you have to go to a 2-loss. Still alive Utah team.
Yeah, and Utah is still very dangerous, as they showed in that.
The true freshman quarterback they put in.
They are never not violent.
Wow.
In Salt Lake.
Bird Ficklin, baby.
Yeah, they ran for 450 yards or something.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Crazy.
Not out of it yet. So we'll see what the Utes do. This is going to be an incredible week. On Tuesday, we'll start breaking down those elimination games. We'll get more into the politics of Baton Rouge with Baton Rouge political expert Ross Dellenger. Cannot wait. We will talk to you on Tuesday.